We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome those of you that are with us here and those that are online. Welcome to our council meeting of February the 28th, last day of February of 2023. We respectfully acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Kwagilts people. We'll be able to test it to everyone here this evening. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? But there will be an amendment because we have one add to, which is basically the letter that we're sending to the district or Mount Washington Regional District, and that'll go under new business. Okay, so we have, okay, thank you, John, for.
With the amendment.
With the amendment, thank you. And Trina for second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, so can we move on to the adoption of the minutes of a special council meeting held on January 23rd? Thank you, Fred. Do I have a second? Thank you, Brian. All in favor? Thank you. Minutes of our committee of the whole meeting held on January 24th. Thank you, John. Thank you, Trina. All in favor? Thank you. Minutes of our regular council meeting held on 24th. Thank you, John. Thank you, Brian. All in favor? Thank you. And the minutes of our special council meeting held on February the 6th. Thank you, John. Thank you, Trina. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. So now we'll move on to delegations, and we're so happy tonight to have, I believe, Paul Adams, and also, let me look here, Peggy Skelton. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Dennis Dugas. I'm the deputy mayor. Our mayor, Pat Corbett-Levac, is online, so she is down in Vancouver right now, so we're glad that she's able to join us this evening. So we'll pass it on to Paul and Peggy, and you guys, you got the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and Deputy Worship, and honourable members of council. I do have a presentation that is about 5 minutes, so I will share my screen, and then we'll open up to any questions that you may have. And if everything's working, you should see a picture of my granddaughter on the screen.
Yes.
Great. And I will start the presentation. Thank you, Your Worship, and honourable members of council for the opportunity to meet with you today. I am presenting today from the Upper Similkameen and the traditional territory of the Silks First Nation, home to the Upper Similkameen Indian Band, and just outside the community of Princeton, BC. We have come today to request your membership in our network to help increase the voice of rural residents on their health and well-being. We are in a healthcare crisis, and increasing our voice is critical to ensure rural health equity is realized and stabilized throughout our province. The impacts of not addressing rural healthcare affects everyone. It is time to address the unique nature of rural challenges which require rural-specific solutions. We are a collective of individuals, rural health advocacy groups, rural volunteers, rural healthcare providers, rural research groups, and nonprofits who provide rural programming and support. The group originally formed as a collective of local advocacy groups who championed rural health during the centralization of services. We have grown, and we are growing rapidly. Our purpose is to share successful strategies in an effort to address rural healthcare concerns. We advocate for policy changes that provide all rural residents with attachment to a healthcare practitioner. We identify areas of research aimed at improving access to healthcare in rural communities and provide fertile ground for research to take place. We inform the Ministry of Health in regards to rural healthcare concerns and recommend solutions to the improvement of services to rural BC residents. We work in partnership with other provincial organizations to influence policy change that improve access to healthcare services. We recognize the healthcare concerns of Indigenous communities and include their issues and concerns as part of our work. and we improve access to mental health services and addiction support services. We promote patient-centered community-based primary healthcare reform. We are a conduit of communication. We listen to our membership and the general public and hear about community-level challenges. We transfer knowledge to our membership and the general public from trusted sources. We also transfer knowledge from the membership and the general public to governments. And we provide local and regional solutions to authorities through high-level interaction with policymakers. We inform the grassroots of our communities, our volunteers, our hospice workers, our community services, and generally work to improve the recognition of rural healthcare providers. Community volunteers are the backbone of the BC Rural Health Network. We advocate for equity in health outcomes for all British Columbians, for the ability to live in place in rural BC, for a robust public healthcare system, for science-based management and solutions, and for community-centric care and community-based health management teams. We are apolitical, we are solutions-based, and we are a registered charity. We are here today to ask for you to join us. Your community voice is needed and wanted by our network. As the saying goes, once you've visited one rural community in BC, you have visited one rural community in BC. Each community in rural BC is unique and has its own unique problems and solutions. We cannot champion each individual problem faced, but we can find common areas that will improve health and wellness for many rural communities. Rural residents are resourceful and resilient, and we have solutions to offer. With a louder voice, we will ensure we are not just listened to, but heard. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your time, and if you have any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Thank you, Paul. Council? Any questions? Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, I didn't see, and I may have just missed it, what sort of fee you're looking at. And I was just wondering, are there any First Nation bands or First Nations Health Authority that are members of the organization?
So we don't have health authorities as members at this point. We tend not to include health authorities in the membership, but we do work with First Nations Health Authority and all health authorities and with all levels of government. We have the Nichelneth Nursing Division as a member, and we continue to reach out to Indigenous communities throughout the province. So we're definitely looking for inclusion, and we're looking to ensure that we bring all voices into the conversation on rural health. And part of the issue that we face is that, you know, we don't want to be representing individuals, organizations, communities. We want to be representing positions which are universal to all rural residents, and ensuring that those positions meet the interests of everyone. So again, our organization looks at finding commonality across the province on areas that we can improve, and that is really the focus of our work.
And how much were the fees that you were looking for?
Right. So the fee is $50, and we don't look to make revenue from our membership, but it's basically to demonstrate that you want your voice included with ours, and that the $50 is a nominal fee to indicate that. And we're seeking core funding from government. We're also seeking funding from grants and basically ensuring that we provide equity and access to ourselves, as well as improving equity and access to healthcare for residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Council? Brian, anything? Mayor, do you have anything, Pat?
Yeah, so I just have a couple of questions. So recently, as a mayor, I joined the BC Rural Healthcare Alliance of Mayors. And I'm wondering if you have reached out to that group to have representation from the mayors on your council. Also, we have a fairly active Mount Washington Health Network that is representative of a lot of organizations and citizens in the North Island that advocate hard for our grassroots concerns with healthcare and that. And are you looking at including the health networks as well in this?
Yeah, and from the Mount Waddington Health Network is certainly an example of excellence from our perspective in how to work with regional entities and bringing people together to combine a voice. Likewise with the Clayoquot Alberni Network, we also work with them. And again, we are looking again to increase the voice of all rural residents and be inclusive of everyone's position. The BC Health Alliance that formed in UBCM and a collection of mayors signed on to that. Our approach has been different, and we do look at wanting to bring membership in through resolution of council rather than just on signature of mayors within communities. And our positions don't always align, but I am reaching out. I'm reaching out to Mayor Goetz and of Merritt. I ran into the Mayor of Grand Forks at the throne speech and have had conversations there. I'm keen to engage, and we already have municipal members who are also BC Health Alliance members. We position ourselves firmly in finding universal positions which create equity for all rural residents. So some of the problems that we have and challenges that we have is in non-science-based approaches or in divisive approaches, which may not meet the needs of all rural communities. We tend to steer away from those issues and focus on the ones which are of common interest to everyone. So it's not that we're in disagreement with the BC Health Alliance's positions overall, but we want to make sure that the positions that we're representing and bringing forward to all policymakers and all divisions of government are not going to create controversy on the rural landscape, because again, we believe that we need less division. We need a more united front, and so I want to include everybody's voice under our umbrella. And again, if we do not agree with your individual concern, it does not mean that you are not welcome within our network. Our network will represent interests which do represent the interests of Port Hardy and do represent the interests of a community on the other side of the province or in the north or wherever it may be. So again, we want to be inclusive. We want to grow the voice. We want to present in a unified fashion. And so we're just picking low-hanging fruit and solutions which meet the interests of everyone.
Thank you. And I really like that you're apolitical. I think that's really important.
Which is a huge challenge, by the way. We have sent out positive notes to the Premier on the creation of the Parliamentary Secretary of Rural Health. And that is not because we have a political bias to the NDP. It's because we see the need to have a focus on rural health within government. And we recognize that position as being a step in the right direction. And now we're going to hold that position to account to ensure that it actually does deliver on rural health for rural British Columbians. We're going to do that by, first of all, recognizing the position exists, and then second, utilizing it to the maximum of our ability. And if that position fails to work because it's underfunded or because it's window dressing or whatever it may be, then we'll hold the Premier and we'll hold the Minister of Health to account to ensure that position is a valid one.
Thank you. So having someone that's a parliamentary secretary to health that's from a rural area, I think is very much a win. I haven't heard much about what MLA Jennifer Rice is doing quite yet, but I'm sure she's busy. I'm hoping she's very busy.
I think we have a lot of distractions with budget and with a variety of other issues. I can say that I'm in constant contact with MLA Rice, and it is again been refreshing to hear a rural perspective come out of a political position in the provincial government. We always have this urban centric and somewhat of an urban narcissism, which tends to happen from urban BC and casts all rural residents as being less than, I think. So I'm very happy to see the change. Now we have to make sure that it's funded and it's resourced and that it actually works to provide a benefit to rural BC. And if you're interested in getting some more insights into her role and into what she views for the future, I'm happy to assist in opening doors to create a meeting there for you. I'm sure you can do that yourself, but I am in regular contact if you're interested.
Thank you. Yeah, we would. I think I can't speak for all of council, but certainly we will discuss it, and it would be nice to have her contact us or us contact her.
Yeah, I think she's still very much in the development of stakeholder lists and understanding her full role and responsibility. But again, if she's resourced appropriately and she's given the tools needed, I think it's a critical piece for rural residents.
Thank you, Pat. Any other questions or comments from council? Well, we thank you very much, Paul, for your presentation. It was very enlightening and it brought us a lot of information that we weren't familiar with. So thank you very much for that. And we haven't heard from Peggy, so I'm not sure if Peggy has anything to say or not.
Well, I said, sometimes I just feel like window dressing because Paul is certainly is the backbone of the presentation. But I think one of the things that I would like to say, by the way, I'm coming to you from the east shore of the Kootenay Lake at a small area called Grey Creek on the traditional unceded territory of the Ktunaxa people. But I think I started to get involved with the BC Rural Health Network when it first, about a year into its development. And that was because I have a history of 37 and a half years in healthcare in Saskatchewan, and most of it rural. And I just found that sometimes in rural, we reinvent the wheel, say in Port Hardy, and reinvent it over here in Grey Creek, or we do a lot of different things that I think our voice could be much stronger and get more business done for rural residents when we have that common voice looking at the common things that we have to deal with. So those are the kinds of things that really led me to becoming involved in the BC Rural Health Network. I'm very pleased with how we've grown over the last, really, started about 5 years ago, but really in the last year. And I think a lot of that's because people are feeling the same way, that we need to really take a look at how can we manage healthcare in a challenging rural environment. And from my background, and I'm sure what you guys know, is that rural folks tend to be very ingenuitive and have wonderful ideas that can work for them. And then perhaps with a little bit of mixing it up a little bit, it can work for other areas too. So those are the kinds of things that I think that the BC Rural Health Network can really take forward. I was also really pleased is that it's solution focused. We all know that there is so many issues around healthcare delivery and the system that we have, but it's based on research and it's positive and it gives us a way to go forward instead of just being concerned about what's happening. It gives us a way forward to try and get us to where we want to be. So that's kind of where I come from and what I believe are some of the strengths of the BC Rural Health Network. So just you get to hear the world according to Peggy sometimes when I come around with Paul. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay,
But we're
thank you.
sure open to any questions if you'd like.
Yes. Any questions, Council? Mayor, Pat?
So I am very much interested in being a solution-based approach rather than a controversial-based approach or a complaining-based approach. And I guess my other question, and I've got a comment and a question. The question is, and we would have to discuss it as a council after the presentation and at another meeting, if by resolution we decide to join you, the cost is minimal financially. What's the cost with work-wise is my question.
Internals.
I can speak to that, Your Worship, is that we have a variety of committees for engagement. We have one committee which is incredibly active, which is our implementation committee, and that is being chaired by Dr. Jude Cornelson, who is a rural researcher, lives on Salt Spring Island, leads the UBC Rural Division of Research, the Rural Research Center at UBC. And she chairs our committee. It brings in incredible resources in volunteerism from across the province. We have counselors, we have healthcare workers, we have researchers, we have general public. We have a lot of keen minds, sharp minds that are bringing forward community-based solutions. And then we're creating position papers and information to provide to government to create policy. Part of her challenge, and she is one of her main research areas, has been rural maternity, and she has led the charge in that for the past 2 decades. She has been frustrated for 20 years in being unable to take her research and get action and moving it into practice and policy. And though this committee is now bringing the evidence from community and then using that evidence to support the research and increasing the voice and the volume of the voice as we present it upwards to government and policymakers. And so I would certainly welcome anybody from council or from the community of Port Hardy to join that committee and to include your voice. And as we're now up to almost 30 municipal members. We had our first regional district join us today, and the regional district of the Central Kootenay joined. And again, this is by resolution. It's not by proclamation. So the council or the boards are voting to join. And just by, again, bringing that voice forward in a meaningful way and providing community solutions and community-based approaches, we're going to achieve a lot more than we have in the past. And as our municipal voice grows, we intend to form a municipal committee, which would then bring municipalities together at a table to provide their unique community experiences and to learn from other community experiences and see where we can find common ground. So it's all about solutions. It's all about networking. It's all about increasing the volume of the voice and making sure that we're heard rather than just listened to and then dismissed.
Okay, thank you. So just now I've got 2 comments. Dr. Jude, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her last name. thank you, has been here in Port Hardy, has many contacts up here and has done research up here because maternity health has been such a controversial issue over the years. And so she has a contact, but depending on what happens with their council table, if there's not anyone on that committee, I certainly could find someone that would sit on that committee. My next comment is your website is incredible. Very easy to maneuver around, and it's very informational, but it's very nice. So that's my other comment. So thank you.
Thank you, because that's been a lot of work, and we do all of this on no budget. So we basically have no finances at this point, and we've done a lot on shoestrings, and we're going to continue doing whatever we can do with low resources. But again, part of our renewed focus is to resource the organization so that we can actually do a better job in representing, hire some people, and get more boots on the ground to get into rural and remote BC and network further directly with communities. So we look forward to our growth in the future, and I think we've made significant strides in the past year, and that will continue.
Well, any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mayor, for your comments and your participation. Greatly appreciated. And on behalf of us here in the council chamber in Port Hardy, we thank you again for your presentation, Paul and Peggy. Thank you very much. And as the mayor had already mentioned, that we will definitely be looking at this and making coming as a resolution to discuss with regards to being a partner, being a member of your committee, or your group. Thank you very much, and have a great evening. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of our council meeting if you wish, but we will put that in your hands.
Well,
thank you.
We thank you very much for your time. We look forward to you joining us, and I have a budget that I have to read, so I can make a press release on why we weren't funded yet again.
Sometimes those are the things that you need to do, right?
Yeah.
Thank you again. Really do appreciate the opportunity to meet with you folks. Have
a
an
good
enjoyable meeting and take care.
Have a great night.
I know.
Yes, I'm gonna stick around.
Yeah, we get him to sit down.
You really want a presentation from somebody?
You'll learn that.
Stick around.
You'll learn that.
We always ask though.
Yeah.
It's just a polite thing to do.
You like that? That's fine.
Okay, so let's go to our item E, business arising from the minutes of unfinished business. And those are action item reports. Council, any questions? Any questions? Pat, do you have any questions? You good? Okay, we don't have any questions here.
There is a motion in that.
Yes, okay. There is a motion.
There's a bunch of motions.
Where?
What?
We're going to correspondence now?
Oh, sorry. I'm ahead of you. Sorry, man.
Wait, yeah, you.
Sorry, man.
Quite a ways ahead.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, where are these motions? Sorry. I missed
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, but we are going to do business and there is a motion. So, and the new business is with regards to the letter that our mayor, Pat Corbett-Labatt, and Heather put together to be sent to the Mount Washington Regional District to ask for a grant in aid request. So, you're making the motion? Yep. Brett, anybody second? Thank you, Trina. Mayor, would you like to make a comment on this letter that we're sending off to the Mount Washington Regional District?
So thank you, Deputy Mayor Dugas. Our CAO, Heather Nelson-Smith, was very gracious in doing up that letter and did an amazing job. And it came out of our discussion with the chair of the RD and with the CAO of the RD that one way that the RD could possibly help us with some of our funding of the debt of the swimming pool loan would be using the grant and aid that they are able to administer, and they're discussing their finance meeting very shortly, so it had to be done at a quick basis. So we put this letter together, and we're hopeful that our council will approve it, and we're also hopeful that the RD will approve it at their finance meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. And for those of you that are here, you did get a copy of it. If it was a late entry, so it came under new business, you don't have a copy of it.
Yeah, I mean, none of us do here.
No, it didn't come in the
That's what
back.
we're trying to look and.
That's
what you
okay.
guys talking about.
Okay, yes, and then basically it's a grant asking for $50,000. That's what we're asking for. So anyways, we have a first and second, so are there any other comments? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Great, thank you. So now we'll move on to correspondence. So we have a number of correspondence that we received in the last little while. First one was from Honorable Minister Ann Kang. And it's with regards to the Growing Communities Fund. And it's basically for information. And basically what it's talking about is that we are going to get some money. We don't exactly know how much. And I believe that we're supposed to know this before the end of March. Is that correct?
I think your phone call at the end of this week might provide some clarity there.
We don't know, but all it is, it's all good news. And we're really excited about that. And I'm assuming that there'll be more than us. Obviously, all the municipalities, they said, what is it, 188, is it?
186.
186 municipalities and regions will be receiving funding, so that's awesome. So I was just thinking about that, maybe that we would follow up with a letter of thank you for this.
Let's wait and see how much we get.
Yeah, we'll see how much we get first.
That's right.
Beg your pardon.
I like your style.
I would anticipate we would write a letter of thank you once we have received official word on what we are receiving. And I'm hoping that you will know sometime later this week, actually.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I won't get to take the phone call, but you will.
Well, there's some benefits of being the deputy mayor, yes, right? Okay, awesome. So anyways, that's great news. And we're really excited about hearing what that news is gonna be. So anyways, we'll move on to number 2 now. With regards to our situation table, which is, we're gonna get some funding for it, and maybe, Heather, if you wouldn't mind, you could just give a little synopsis about, for those of them that are here, that are online, what the situation table really is all about, and what's it gonna do for us and our community and region.
Absolutely. So the situation table is a table that's set up within the community that addresses individual case files of the RCMP. So we know that 43% of RCMP files are related to mental health occurrences that aren't necessarily related to criminal offenses. And there are ways that we can create mitigations in order to prevent future issues from happening with individual specific cases. So what it does is it collaborates with the RCMP, brings those files to the table. You have partners at the table like Ministry of Child and Family Development, Mental Health and Addictions, Island Health, the District of Port Hardy, possibly Vancouver Island Regional Library, Salvation Army, etc. There's many different people you can have at the table, and I don't have it right in front of me, so I can't go through the full list. And so that case file is then looked at, and when the situation tables were actually developed in 2022, they actually had 26% of the case files were from RCMP were taken to situation tables. 92% of those 26 were actually dealt with by other agencies and actually mitigated, which then actually takes your crime level down because now those calls start coming in less. And so you're actually addressing the root cause of the issue. One of the things that council had been actively advocating for on behalf of the RCMP was the mental health card, which is another form of funding that's coming forward in order to also support RCMP services. But it's a little bit different of a model. We are going to go after it as soon as that announcement's made for us to be able to apply. but it is a bit different. And then with our Safer Places program that we're currently running, where we meet every 2 weeks with all of the different agencies at the table, the situation table will actually be created as an arms, basically an extension of that group. What happened when I submitted the application was the funder phoned and asked us to apply for more. And so we did. And the premise behind that was that Alert Bay and Port McNeill are so close to us that there's an opportunity for us to collaborate regionally, because most of their services are actually received in Port Hardy. So there's a great opportunity for us to create a broader spectrum. So going forward, we're just waiting on the word to get the training. We will be trained to make sure we do it right. There is a requirement for data collection, and the district would be providing that service as well, and then bringing all the partners together. But it also has a wide range of consultation opportunities as well that we'll be participating in.
Yeah. And it's community and regional based too, so that's awesome. That's great. And what's even better is that we ended up getting $60,000, and originally I believe that was a $30,000, wasn't it?
40.
40.
That's what we asked for.
So we asked 40 to give it 60, so that's awesome. Very well. Merritt, have any comments?
I think the comment would be is we started the Safer Place table with partners once a week. And then as a council, we went to UBCM and lobbied hard for help. And they at UBCM said, it sounds like you're doing what the situation table is already doing, and we're doing it off everyone's side of their desk with no help at all. And so by putting in the grant that Heather put together everything, we're going to get help, and it should be very good. But I think too, Heather's reached out to the different partners, and everybody's on board with it, and have said, if you need me there, I'll be there too. And I just think it will be a benefit to the community. Fingers crossed, it'll be a big benefit.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, any other comments? I think it's a great program. Yeah, very fortunate that we got it, but. And I think that that's one of the benefits that, as the mayor's already mentioned, when we do go to UBCM, when we do sit down and talk to the ministries, it does have an impact, and it does give us some great ideas, and they're the ones that focused us on this program, and they said, get in there, apply for it, and so it all works out. So there's a lot of benefit for going down and talking to the ministry. Sometimes some people think that maybe that's not the case, but that it really is the case, and to be able to get our voices heard, but not only that, get feedback from them. So we work together on solutions, and that's awesome. Okay, go ahead,
Yeah,
Fred.
no, I was just going to acknowledge that getting the funding is one thing. And I agree with Pat that it's sort of what was happening with the Safer Places, that model of groups meeting and trying to design something that would make a safer place and bring more services. That the work is done by a lot of people, and it's hard work. It's not easy. It's not an easy issue, and the solutions ways to address it are not easy either. And the people who are going to be, and it's great that the funding is there, but the people who will be at that table will have very hard jobs. I mean, there's nothing about that is going to be easily accomplished. So, 3 cheers for the funding and the people that are going to be putting it in place.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments, Council? If not, then we'll move on to the next item. And basically, the next few items are basically letters that we wrote for agencies that were asking for our support to go for funding. And the first was the letter that was written for Salvation Army with regards to support, resilience, and safety grant. Go ahead. Thank you, John.
Motion.
Motion, second. And these letters have already been written, so this is just a follow-up. We had obviously had permission they asked us to do this before our council meeting so they could get it in on time. So, okay, thank you. So all in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to the next letter that they asked for support from, and that was in Crisis and Counseling Center New Beginnings Program, program contract renewal. Thank you, John. Thank you, Trina. Another letter that we gave them for support. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the next one, which is the Iced Tea Rural Advisory Letter of Support. Thanks, John. Thank you, Trina. All in favor? Thank you. And okay, so now this is one that we have to discuss, and then we can ask for a motion if that's the decision of council. Okay, and it's basically a request for a Quatsi Estuary Memorial Bench from Kenneth and Cord Nelson, and Cord Hardy. No, I guess the only thing that I could do is ask staff, Heather, with regard to this particular request in that location, is there any issues that you could see that would be a reason why that this wouldn't be accepted, or
So the reason.
from staff, I mean?
So from staff's perspective, the reason why it's coming to council is because we have a memorial bench policy that we follow.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna deviate from that, we have to come to council before we can make any of those kind of decisions.
Mhm.
The bench that is in the current location, there is deteriorated and does need to be replaced, and there aren't any other benches around there that would pose any kind of issue. The proponent has requested the bench to be put there, and they're willing to maintain it. And then when it ceases to need its useful life, they will address that going forward. So the question why we brought it to council is because of the fact that it's not within the policy. So for us to deviate, we would need a council resolution to do so.
Good. Thank you, John.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
To
Second.
deviate.
To deviate? Okay, and Brian will second that?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Mayor Corbett Labatt.
So I guess my only discussion is, do we want to have a look at our bench policy at some point and maybe look at expanding the locations? Or do we want to keep it the way it is and just look at these as going by resolution?
Go ahead, Heather.
Sorry, Councilor.
I like the idea of bringing the policy back to the table and reviewing it. I think that sounds a reasonable request, and if we needed a motion after this motion, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Heather.
Just with respect to the locations, we're opening up new locations on a regular basis. So we don't necessarily need to worry about policy. It's more of the aesthetics of the item. So we have a certain bench that we order that is part of the policy, and it has a certain price tag because we also charge a certain fee for it, and there's a plaque that goes with it. So we actually have, it's kind of, it creates this, because we have to take care of it going forward with, take it apart and clean it and do everything else. So we always want to make sure that they're uniform so that we're dealing with them. So I guess the question would be, in terms of the policy, is if we were to open it up more to changing the look of the benches themselves. And that's the only reason why, in this particular case, because it's kind of on its own and not going to be offset by any of the other benches that are around it. That was kind of the purpose of that. But in terms of us opening up new locations, we're opening them up all the time. We've got more requests coming in for memorial benches on a regular basis. But if council wants us to look at the actual bench itself and consider different layouts or different looks for different areas.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Go ahead, John.
Some of my thinkings on this is to look at different materials that are coming out now, like recycled materials. I think we need to kind of look at that idea of a bench if we can. The ones I've seen around, it's, unless you get really close, you don't realize it's not a wooden bench. It's actually a recycled bench. So I'd like to see is kind of look at that idea of benching.
Mhm. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor and we have discussion, so with regards to the deviation part and moving that, I guess replacing the bench that's there, is that right, Heather? The bench
Yeah.
that's there at the estuary would be replaced with this bench, right?
Correct.
And that's what the motion is?
Mhm.
So all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? None? Okay, did you want to make another motion then, John? With
Yes,
regards to,
well, really, does it need to have a motion to bring it back to the a committee?
Well, I guess it could, but I think we can research, because I think we actually already are buying recycled.
I think so.
benches
Okay,
right now, because that's what Wishbone provides.
yeah,
And so, but we can just double check and make sure, and then if
Okay.
there's any kind of deviation, we can report back.
yes.
The bench we just put down there for my grandma and grandpa down at the.
Mhm.
close to the
recycled?
spots, It's recycled, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I have a hand up, Ross.
Thank you. Just something for council's consideration. So as a former urban designer that would design public spaces across Western Canada, one of the things that I've observed in many communities, including Port Hardy, is that the use of the utilization of benches is not, it doesn't relate to the weather. In other words, a lot of communities use benches that you can't sit on for chunks of the year because they retain water and so on and so forth. So part of the discussion that council may want to have around this issue is asking that staff provide some options around benches that are better aligned to be used in wet communities. In other words, benches that shed the water very quickly, so you can sit on them, you know, rather than benches that stay wet for hours and hours and hours or days on end.
Thank you, Ross. Because I know what you're talking about. I've sat on them before. I thought they were dry, but I was mistaken, they weren't.
Bring the towel.
Yeah, really tell.
You can always tell when you see that sign there saying wet paint.
Yeah. Just the same wet bench, though. Mayor, do you have any comments, please? Nope, you're good? Perfect. Okay, then, so I guess with the recommendation or the discussion with regards to what Ross brought up was that, yeah, we'll take that into consideration moving forward with benches. Thank you, Ross. Okay, so now we go down to, oh, we have a motion coming up here. Okay, Filumi Days. There's a motion on the floor for a request from Filumi Days and,
There's no motion.
I'll make the motion.
well, there, thought there was a request. for
Yeah.
Filumi Days
Yeah,
motion.
we just have to move.
Okay,
Nobody's moving.
nobody's moving it?
Nobody has moved.
Oh, somebody's, well, I was just gonna make,
Yes.
just John and I, do we have to leave this particular case?
Are you on the executive?
Yes,
Yes, we are, both of us. I guess we gotta leave. That's okay. Let's go.
where we'll go.
We just lost
Do
quorum.
we have
folks.
quorum?
We just look.
Oh, no, we didn't.
That's cool.
That's there.
That's cool. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Talk about
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I guess I'll take back over as chair right now.
it.
So
I'll
we've
make
got
the
a,
motion.
the move, trade and move, seconded by Fred. Do we, is there any concerns with the requests in the letter?
Just one, if I could, Mayor.
Yes?
Is we don't normally provide, I think we have provided some garbage cans. But I think typically we've taken it out because they get boxes to provide the garbage disposal and we don't really have an abundance of extra garbage cans. So we provide whatever we can, but we can't provide all of it.
Okay, thank you. And Ross?
Just wondering where quorum sits at this point.
I have 4.
Sorry, I didn't see Brian. He's disappeared on my screen. Apologies. Sorry,
Oh, now
Brian.
he's leaning over towards Trina.
You need to talk more, Brian, so you show on my screen. Sorry about that.
I was just admiring the lovely apartment you're in.
This is what the big wages of Port Hardy pays for, downtown New
Yeah.
York,
I see that.
Manhattan's.
Well done. Who knew?
So could we move the request with the removal of the garbage cans?
You could, I think we do every year.
That's what I thought too. That's why I asked about the letter.
Fortunately, somebody picked up on that, so off we go.
All
You
right,
will
so
note maybe there's a bigger closure.
Yeah.
Just in case it wasn't brought to everybody's attention, there is a bigger closure of the downtown.
so is that going to be a problem, Heather?
Well, so I say this, it's always a problem for people when we close roads. But given that it's a nice event, that
Too bad, so sad.
we usually get everybody on board at the end of the day. So we have all the barricades, we have everything that we can provide in order to support them. We have been using staff to also help with the parade to ensure that some of those high profile corners are kind of covered off on to alleviate some of our challenges that we've had with people trying to drive through barricades. So we'll do everything we can in order to facilitate them.
Okay, thanks. All right, so moved and seconded, all in favor? Opposed, carried.
Thank you, Mayor.
Gentlemen,
We thought we'd go have a party. That's not able to see
Come
you.
back in with a few times.
Yeah.
they fell asleep instead.
Yeah.
See that you were talking about Flomy days, we were just talking about food vendors.
Yeah,
We're really concerned about that this year. So if anybody would like to put a stand in and sell stuff as a food vendor at the Flomy days, we'd really appreciate it. Because it's a big moneymaker, but we just can't get anybody to come and do it.
Well, there's the one in, you know, it's.
Yeah, we're reaching out to everybody, but we're not getting a lot of response right now, so we don't get a little bit concerned about the food vendors.
So, excuse me, Deputy Mayor,
Yes,
perhaps Flomy Days Committee could do a presentation to council.
we could certainly do that.
Yeah,
We'll do that, Mayor. Thank you. We'll have to get a hold of staff to set us up as a delegation.
yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Bring up the fishing derby.
So is there more discussion with regards to Flomy Days, or is that finished now?
Done.
Okay, so we can move on then. Okay.
Wouldn't ask you in the face.
Yeah. Okay. We have a request for greetings to the Shenyang 2023 Tour to BC, and this is for discussion. And I guess they're just looking for a letter from us,
Yeah, that's,
thanking them for coming and doing their show that they do here in BC. Mayor, do you have any comments with regard to that request?
so they've reached out, as you can see on the letter, they reached out to me and they also sent a very nice calendar that's on the desk in our office. And I asked Heather, what do you think? And so we thought we would bring it to council. I don't know if anyone's going to be going to this presentation, but I know it's what I've seen on the TV and looking at the calendar, it looks pretty magnificent. I also suspect a lot of it has to do with China coming back and performing in Canada and looking for validation.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, on the face of it, it seems fine. I mean, I don't have any problem. But again, that's on the face of it. My suggestion would be that we ask staff to, so I'm sorry, I just lost it on my computer. If we could, before we do that, to ask staff if there's any challenges or any politics that we're not aware of with respect to it. And I see no problem, but that's what I see from there, and that if there's any underlying issues that we need to be aware of, that they could be brought to our attention. Sorry.
At this point in time, it would be putting me on the spot. I don't have an answer for that.
No,
Yeah.
no, which is why I'm saying I would refer it to staff.
We can definitely find them for you.
Okay, so that would be the recommendation from council. Mayor?
I'm absolutely fine with that. Because, yeah,
Okay, perfect, thank you. Council, any other comments? Okay, so, sorry, Heather. Just pass
Yeah,
that one on.
that's my fault, sorry.
I'll add it.
She forgives us, thank you. Okay, so, Wounded Warriors. As, they actually started off on their run on Sunday, they did, didn't they?
Yes, correct.
And, the mayor and Councilor Tidbury were there. So could you, Mayor, you want to make any comments with regards to the Wounded Warrior and their 10-year anniversary?
certainly. And Councillor Tidbury can jump in at any time because he's been there for most of, if not all, the Wounded Warrior runs in Port Hardy. So it started 10 years ago with Councillor Tidbury. Was it with two runners that wanted to bring people's awareness to mental health and how warriors, both living and who have fallen, have suffered, and they wanted, again, to bring awareness to it and to try and make it better. So in 10 years, the run is going strong. They had, I believe, 7 runners this year.
8.
They
8
left,
runners.
8 runners this year.
Yeah.
And with a big support team, and they left Port Hardy. Well, they arrived in Port Hardy in a blizzard. They got stuck in the parking lot at the hotel. They had to be pushed out of there. But they went out to the Legion and were welcomed at the Legion and were fed, and then came back into Hardy to the hotel. And then we're at the Civic Center at 6 o'clock in the morning, thereabouts, with the Lions bringing in refreshments and greeting them. And then Calvin Hunt welcomed them to the territory and wished them well and sang a Quagga song over them and spread down, and so that they would run well and be safe on their run. Then at 7:20, they left a bit early because it was not very nice out. And they ran up and they ran through the blizzard, and they landed in Port McNeill and then in Wass. And when I drove down yesterday, I passed them just as they were just about getting to Sayward. And so it was pretty moving going there and hearing the stories and hearing why they were running and how it's grown. And Port Hardy's always a start off point.
Mhm.
So Councillor Tidbury, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, yeah, the very first, the first running of the event, Port Hardy presented them with a flag. And they got everybody there to sign the flag, and they took that flag to every community down Island and got signatures from everybody. So that was something in itself, that it was our Port Hardy flag from this community that went all the way to Victoria.
Right, cool.
Yeah. So that was nice. I don't know if it's, at this time, I would like to ask if there's any possible way that we could look at giving a donation to this organization.
Mhm. Yes, Heather.
I'll pass it to Nora May, because we did provide a very quick staff report after yesterday's finance meeting where we had a bit of a discussion about what was left in the grant and aid budget. So I'll hand it over to Barbie.
Yeah, I went off the bottom of their letter there where they requested $2,000 towards their ambitious goal, 250,000 this year. And the recommendation was for $1,000.
I would like, at this time, to make that motion of $1,000.
And Fred seconds that motion. Mayor, any comments?
No, I thank you, Nora May, for doing that because I know I was quite moved and I really appreciate you doing that and I'm in full support of it. I think I'd like to also look at maybe making sure we do something every year, whether it's financial, because we'll have to look at the grant and aid program every year too, but also doing something a little bit more tangible, as John said, like a flag or doing something to honor them, because if they're coming up here and doing it, it's just getting bigger and bigger, and I think we need to recognize them more.
Yes, it sure would be nice. Also, when I was talking to Calvin again, and he's mentioned it to them before, but maybe we as the district of Port Hardy could also mention to the group that if they talk to other communities, First Nation communities down island, and get permission for Calvin to be part of the group, it would be nice. They've asked that he do that, but he can't do that because he has to have permission from each location. So, but if we could kind of point that out to him that that's the route they have to go for Calvin to be able to go into other locations. But he would be happy to do it.
Yes.
But he still needs the okay, and he can't go. It's the group that has to do it.
That's right. Thank you. Just a thought, when you were talking about Calvin Hunt, I was just thinking about the fact that wouldn't it have been nice to be able to give them a colloquial carving of some sort as a memento that they start their race here, the beginning of their journey. That would be kind of really cool. Just to have something like that to present them. You said a flag, well, what about, this is coming from their traditional territory, right?
That's right.
That would be really cool.
That would be nice too.
Yeah.
Because they have a building now.
Yeah. That'd be neat. Okay, so we have first and second, right?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Nora May, for putting that together.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now we'll go into item number 10, which was a letter that was sent to us by Dr. Charles Sun. It was regards to the physician assistants, the letter that we had written to the province, to Adrian Dix, with regards to getting a PA. And it's quite lengthy letter and talks about a number of different things that we requested, talking about the physician assistants. They're talking about a number of different other doctors that are in support of getting physician assistants in our province. And it's open up for discussion. Any discussion from council? Otherwise, we'll table and file this. Any other discussions? Mayor, did you have any comments with regards to the letter? No? Anyone else here in council? If not, okay, receive and file. Thank you very much. Let's move on to committee reports. Okay, so for information, Finance Committee minutes. Any comments? Questions? Okay, we're going on to Emergency Planning Committee meeting held for information, but there is a recommendation. The recommendation is that the Emergency Planning Committee recommend to council that the following appointments to Emergency Planning Committee for a one-year term be approved. And then there's a number of names on there, as we can all read. So do I have a motion? We have a motion.
Make the motion.
You made the motion, you keep putting two fingers, I thought you were
Oh,
second.
oh, yeah.
I would put two things.
I don't know, Pat, you probably can't see that, but
It's better than putting one. finger.
True, that's true. Yeah.
every time Trina put her hand up, she goes two. So I'm not sure if she, okay, second, who was the first? Trina was the first, Brian was the second. So, yes, John?
Just a small question, and I should know this, but I don't at this point in time. Can we add to this committee?
Yes, we can.
Because there's individuals that would like to be part of this committee, and for some reason or another, they didn't attend that particular time. So if down the line, we need more motions,
Just.
So which, yeah,
If
go
I
ahead,
may,
yeah.
if I may, the other thing is we have a distribution list, I think of about 26 individuals that do receive the emergency agenda and can attend at any time. It's just trying to maintain that voting membership, so we know who's going to come every single time. So if they're willing to commit to every second month, then the recommendation can be brought forward to council.
yeah, because an individual from the Coast Guard approached me and I said,
Good.
okay.
Good, thank you, John. So all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? No, that carries, thank you. Okay, so let's move on, Karen. Draft minutes for the finance committee held February for information. Any questions for Norma? I'm told she's just excited to answer some. If you have any. Okay, we'll move on then. Draft minutes from the Bear Smart. Trina, any comments? You good?
Good.
The Bears are smarter every day?
Way smarter than us.
Yeah.
Smarter than the average bear.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now we'll move on to staff reports, finance department, January 2023 checks. Is there any questions with regards to all those checks that we send out every month? Or every week? A lot of checks. Okay, no questions? Let's move on. Okay, Norma is going to bring to us, she's our Director of Finance Services, with regards to CIBC General Bank Account. And this is for information. Any comments you would like to make?
Well, it's probably, if you guys have any comments, it was just got started because we had a meeting with the rep that comes up from CIBC and then mentioned that Kevin and I were talking, we should think about getting some interest rates, and so that got it started. So we asked, I've done it before with Lisa Etter, so it was pretty straightforward being able to talk to her and say, yeah, here we go, So you need to have your balance of 100,000 minimum. So they go through a whole treasury report to see where you're at and what's going on. And a lot of people, usually your checking account doesn't have the interest on it, so you negotiate that you're not going to pay service charges, but more and more are going now where they're negotiating for, an interest and pay your service charge. And even, so we're looking at, an annual revenue with that interest of 4.55 based on a 3-month average of what we were doing of about 31,000. And then even when you take your service charges off of that, you're still,
Right.
yeah, ahead of the game for sure. And then the other part of it that came out was saving some money by not printing so many checks. And the cost savings that I have on there for approximately $3,700, we're averaging 155 checks a month. Times that by $1.07 for a stamp, add in your, envelopes, your checks, ordering checks, and come back to EFTs with one big batch. And it doesn't change very many things, like, except that you've got one batch that's going to the bank, which is much cheaper, of course, right? But you still have counselors and people with signing authority that will, you attach the non-negotiable check, which is empty on prices, and you still use double signatures, so everybody still sees everything. And I think that's where most times people have the worry about going to an EFT program. But I was really pleased with all the information that they brought us, and I think it'll really come forward. So, questions?
The And I think just in terms of, just if I could add to it as well, just, providing, the recommendation at the bottom is more for me, because there was no cost increase in order for us to be able to do that. And then, the other thing we're looking at doing is more efficiencies so that we're not making so many runs to the bank in order to deposit checks and having scanners sit at our desk so that we're scanning the checks in as they're coming in. But it's also to addressing the fraud issue that people are still fraudulently creating checks. And the bank is trying to get more and more businesses to use EFTs in order to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I add a little bit more to that maybe. I've actually been surprised that I've seen 3 checks that have had fraud. And I just was shocked first time I saw one where I could not tell how that person had changed the name. And went to the bank and was like, how do you do this? And the problem is, it's not so much that, but it holds up. If you wrote a check and it's $3,000, $15,000, and it gets interrupted, it took that time us close to 4 months before we got our money back. So it's a real cash flow issue. And the other one was a date where I did see that one where they had changed a thing, and people can take pictures of their checks and then somehow sometimes they doodle through. So there really is some pretty smart people out there that want to try to do bad things. Yeah. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, well, that's great information. Mary, do you have any comments?
No, I just think it's really great that Norma's following through and looking at all these different things and making it better for our town.
Great, yeah, thank you very much, Norma, for that work. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next item, which is a grant in aid request from the Salmon Enhancement Workshop coming up in May. And the recommendation that council consider the request for a late grant in aid of $2,000, or which basically comes up to 25% of the Northern Vancouver Island Salmon Enhancement Association to assist with Salmon Enhancement Workshop. I'll pass that back on to staff to give us an update on that request.
Yeah, their request came in, it's for their, they're having a conference here in, at the Civic Center, May 19th to the 22nd, expecting 250 to 300 volunteers going to be there, and they wanted, they've been reaching out to people to help with the refreshment breaks. They had requested 2,500, but when I thought that was going to bring down our budget a bit low on the grant and aid, and so I recommended $2,000 at the time. And then we, of course, now the Wounded Warriors have come in, but that's between these two, if we go with the 2,000 on this one, that'll leave us at the 5,000 mark, which is kind of one where we try to leave it, from my understanding from what Heather was saying, that our finance meeting.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I'll move it, and then if I could just briefly speak to it.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead, second. Thank you, John. Yeah, go ahead. Fred.
Yeah, as the true salmon capital.
Thank you. Thank you.
True. There are pretenders out there.
Yeah.
That can't hold the candle to us, even if we are a little bit closer to town until the 15th of July. Anyway, yes, I'd be happy to move it, and would be actually interested in attending to as soon as COVID. So, yeah, perfect.
I think super important for us to show that we care, especially the district of Port Hardy, and how big it is for us and how salmon wildlife affects us and our community so hugely, that showing that we're in support for it's big.
Thanks, Brian. Mayor?
Just want to say that it is on the May long weekend, so, but they are looking for a counselor, which would, I don't know if you saw that, they would be interested in a counselor emceeing the conference. And if anyone is interested, let Heather know, and they could reach out to her.
Can we
reach out to
appoint staff? Mayor, can we appoint staff to that?
Heather's got her hand up.
I was really surprised that they had requested a counselor to be an MC. I think they're just having it on a long weekend is a little bit challenging to find people that might be willing to attend to it.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely volunteer to attend to it if I'm here, but again, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be here either. But, yes, go ahead, Heather.
I was just gonna say, we'll clarify with them when I'm meeting with the group next week, just to make sure that that is in fact what they're looking for and not just a welcome. Because my
Right.
understanding is the request would be for a welcome and not to have somebody MC from council.
And,
Yeah, so when they sent the letter
Did
to
you want
me about,
I'm sorry, Mayor?
sorry, when they sent the letter to me, it was for a greeting, but on this grant and aid application, they expanded on it. So clarification would be good.
Yeah. Well, you can let them know, Heather, if I'm available, I can do both. That's not an issue. I can help them out. You know me, I'm a big mouth singer, so I can do that kind of stuff. Okay, so we have a first and second for that motion. So all in favor? Are you opposed? Thank you. I'm sure they'll appreciate our $2,000 donation for sure. Oh, Economic Trust Rural Trust Advisory Program. Okay, we're gonna go for that, obviously. That the district, recommendation of the district court apply for the Island Coast Economic Trust under the Rural Advisory Program to support economic development in Port Hardy for 2023. Heather, would you like to speak on that?
Well, basically, this would be a continuation of the program that we already started. However, there
Yes.
is a bit of a caveat to that. Housing has been taken off of the table for any kind of planning with regards to this particular grant. So there was a large component of our last one where we were utilizing the staff for housing, so they can't be utilized for that purpose anymore. And of course, we have applied, and I do make mention of this in my staff report, for the Rural Economic Development Advisory Program, which has a bit of capital as well. So the opportunity, if we get both grants, would be that we can meld the two together in order to do a lot more. So that's the hope. But there is a lot of things, and you'll notice in the economic development plan that have both either started or still need to get done that that we can definitely action for the next year. The cost to the district would be zero. This would be the ICT would pay for all of the funding for these two staff.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heather. Go ahead.
I'll make that
You Make
motion.
the motion. Judge will second. Any more discussion? Mayor, any discussion?
Just that Brody Guy reached out to me recently to make sure that we were putting an application in, so I thought that was very promising. And they're meeting later this week, so we'll know early that next week or next week, very shortly after what's going on.
Great, thank you. And we do know that ICD is also making an application request to the province to continue on their program, and they're asking for, I believe that they asked for $150 million. And from what I can understand, they're hoping to hear before the end of March whether or not they got that funding to continue on with that program. So that's going to be great information too. Because if they do get the extra funds, that's just going to give another opportunity for us in our communities to ask for more moving forward for anything to do with our economic development in our community. So that's great news. Okay, so all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, so we will move on to Russ Blackwell, Director of Corporate Development Services, and we're going to talk about a safer place to be, site selection analysis on the information they gave. And thank you, Ross, for putting that all together. And now, please give us a brief preview of what you got, and then we can ask some questions or talk about it. Thank you.
So as you will recall, in November last year, a representative from Mount Waddington Health Network and Island Health appeared as a delegation to council and made a request for a resolution that's set out under the background of your report, which was with regard to permanent shelters in the Stink Creek Park or alternative appropriate location. Following that, in a December meeting of council, there was a motion that staff be directed to investigate this in more detail. So the report before you does that. The high points of the report point out that there are a number of different lenses to look through with regard to how to prioritize locations. The one that has been focused on is the CPTED, or crime prevention through environmental design lens, which is a sort of passive approach at monitoring and ensuring social behaviors are able to be, let's call it, contained somewhat. Using that lens, I took an investigative approach with regard to sites. And as you can see under the site analysis, there are two concentric rings, a 250 meter and 500 meter ring centered on the mall. These are reflective of typical walking sheds associated with pedestrianism. Within these walking sheds there, excuse me, there are 6 sites that you'll note in the report. 2 are owned by the district, 4 are privately owned. So the privately owned sites come with a whole host of other considerations that may make them absolutely off the table. Nonetheless, they fit the criteria associated with those CPTED principles, which are set out in the report. So moving further into the report, each site was crudely ranked based on the CPTED principles or priorities, let's say. And on that basis, there was a ranking associated with that. With regard to that ranking, council should note there are financial implications, some of which may be roughly understood. Some of them are vague or undetermined at this point. That would be, with regard to financial implications, that would be something that council may well want to investigate further should this proceed further. So with that, that is all I have to say with regard to the summary of my report, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I'll move over to Mayor first. Any questions or comments, Mayor?
Well, I know at the Safer Place meeting that we just recently had, different representatives that were there were asking again if there had been a location chosen, and we said that this was Ross, or Heather brought up Ross's report and brought it forward for their consideration and for them to look at it. And there was a question about finances, like if the council said yes, we would go with a particular location, if there would be any help with capital, because we know if there's a permanent structure, then there's a financial implication. And so that needed to be discussed. And so now it's up to council to decide whether they want to go ahead and do a permanent structure or not. And the permanent structure could be even starting off with a solid tent rather than a canvas tent.
Councilor Robertson?
Yeah, thanks for this, Ross. It does put things in perspective. I'm assuming that we're not choosing a site tonight. No. So my only and I would my inclinations are that we lean towards establishing a site. I actually like the suggestion that there may actually be two different areas or two different locations that would work best. I am interested in what the process dealing with the private lands might be and liabilities and everything that's involved there. But I think one of the things that I think it's important to do, and I know that it has happened before, is that we talk through the Safer Place group and the potential situation table, that we talk to the people who are going to be using it. That we not simply, and this came up at the luncheon today, the chamber lunch, and with Shane, when Shane was talking, that we don't just simply say, yeah, this is a good place or this is a good place. Because we need to talk to the people who are using it. And we need, you know, the people who would probably best do that are the Safer Place groups and Safer Place as a part of that consultation. But I think it is important that we do talk to them, and from there we can begin to bring in other factors and try and decide where best to locate something. Because I do believe that we do need to locate something somewhere along the way, but there's some things they need to understand before we do that.
May I just jump in?
Yes, Mayor, go for it.
So, sorry, and thank you, Councillor Robertson, for bringing that up. Absolutely. And I know that Shane had some of the most vulnerable people. There's always leaders and spokespersons, and he was going to talk to some of them to see about if we're going to go ahead, that they are part of the decision making about it. And we know that there's there are vulnerable people that need help, and we don't want to be making the decisions for them if they don't want it, and we don't want to be making decisions. We want to do it in a consultative way, not in a top-down way.
This being a fairly controversial subject, I guess, in our community, if you could say the least. But it's definitely, council has been 100% supportive of this right from day one, and we will continue to do that. And I think what's important is that, as the mayor's already alluded to, and Councillor Robertson, it's a consolidated solution-based issue that we're dealing with. We want to get everybody at the table, want to come up with something that's going to work for everybody. And we're not going to make everybody happy, we know that. But we got to do something, and we're going to continue doing it. We did the pilot study. I thought, from what I thought and what I saw, it's a great step forward. Now we just got to keep that momentum going and work with all of our groups to make it happen. And I'm really excited about the work that Ross put into this. It gives us a template to work on, and gives lots of opportunities for discussion. But it's showing the community that we're totally 100% supportive, and we're going to work towards finding a solution. And it may not be perfect, but it's going to be better than what we got right now. That's for sure. Now, Brian, you have anything to comment on?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I agree with consulting the people that, you know, people downtown, and making sure that, yeah, if we build the structure, put a structure in that, yeah, they're actually going to use it. But at the same time, obviously, one of the biggest things is that making this work for the citizens of Port Hardy as well, not just, you know, that's the hard part here, is making sure that it works for everybody, like you said. But we do have to seriously consider the business is around, and the people, the tourists, they're going to be around here for the location as well. So it's a catch-22 that, you know, we talk to these people downtown and they say this location doesn't work, but it ends up being the best location for being kind of further away from businesses and tourism avenues. You know, we're likely going to be coming into a hard decision, but it's a tough one. But I'm 100% in support of doing something for sure. There's no doubt that, and I do agree that from what the presentations that Shane put forth and talks with him, that what they learned was invaluable and that, you know, people do want to use those places. It just so happens to be that St. Creek Park is not the best place. Isn't the best place, in my opinion, for it going forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. John?
No, none at this time. I keep quiet. I want to hear some of the other people, but.
Oh, of course. Trina?
Thank you very much, Ross, for your report. It's kind of very nice to see everything kind of scored in that
Very
way.
well
And
done.
then we can see that Stink Creek Park is not a very high scoring. So thank you very much for that clear. And it's a lot of decisions. I agree with what Councillor Tidbury said about private, finding out a little bit more about the difficulties there. Some interesting things that I would not have considered with public property. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't even consider that as an option. So lots to think of. Thank you very much, Ross, for your hard work on that. And yeah, hopefully
That's good.
we can make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor.
So I was just going to say that perhaps we need to have a bigger discussion, and maybe at the next committee of the whole, we can talk about this more and because I don't want it just to kind of linger. We want to have work towards a solution and come up with a plan on working towards that solution.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
So,
And go ahead.
I was-
Go ahead,
I
Mayor.
was-
Sorry.
I was just wondering if Heather could chime in a little bit and what she thinks.
Oh, everybody's looking at me. So, yeah, there's a couple of different factors, and I know when we went to the chamber lunch today, there was definitely a different feel around the room with respect to the work that has been done by Island Health in order to try to create outreach opportunities for people. And the success, that was explained today by Shane in terms of the reduction in numbers on police calls and, the fact that we've got people that are feeling supported and feeling as though there is a community that cares about providing services. And I totally agree that we definitely need to have an open dialogue. And I know we've had some discussions about a broader discussion regarding the downtown core and, bringing agencies in to have those discussions about safety and security. And this all fits within there. And I think that, the situation table can kind of start addressing some of those areas, but I think we really need to start having a broader discussion about funding and how that's going to look, because if there is an opportunity for Island Health to collaborate in terms of, providing some sort of funding, because of the fact that, as I explained today at the chamber lunch, normally social services and health services are not a local government issue. So we're kind of stepping into an area that we're not comfortable in. But we're totally fine with being uncomfortable. That's a natural way of doing things. But we need to figure out ways of making sure that the province is contributing to be able to make sure that we have all of the services and the needs that go along with the safer place opportunity. And whether it be one location or two locations, whether it be district property or leased land or bought land, there's a whole pile of different scenarios that can definitely come out of that. But again, it goes down to that broader discussion of, who, what, where, when, and why, right? Don't know if the mayor thinks I missed anything.
No, you covered it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we as council obviously are very supportive of this, and we will continue to be supportive. And however we move forward, whatever decision that we come up with, we want to do it sooner than later, because we do know summer's around the corner. It's not going to be far away, and we may not have a permanent place, but we might have to have an alternate place for this coming summer, and working on a more permanent place in the future, because who knows how long it's going to take to have that happen. But getting that group together, as we talked about before, and I believe that we did have a conversation that the mayor set up with regards to bringing businesses here. We had a meeting with businesses and they came and we talked about that. And I think we've got to build on that.
Mhm.
And getting more, and other community involvement, and plus our Indigenous nations involvement too. Get them all at the table, have that discussion. And when the mayor was saying about a committee of the whole, I'm sure that she's meeting a committee of the whole, specifically dealing with that issue.
Mhm.
Not anything else, just
Yeah.
that particular issue. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, on that, because I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, I'm thinking that I was just throwing that out as a committee of the whole, but I'm also, we, Ross and Heather and I've talked to a few other counselors, have talked about doing a task force. And part of that task force would be moving forward with a number of different people on the task force on looking at safety in the downtown core, but it's not just safety for, it's a whole broad thing. And Ross has put together a bit of a slideshow that it's in draft form right now that will bring forward at the next council meeting. But that could tie in with this this project as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think that forming that satellite task force group would be awesome. Yeah, and I know we have counselors here that would be very interested in being a part of that. I mean, and all of us would be, but we can't all be a part of it, but we're gonna be supportive of it, that's for sure. And I know that that'll happen sooner than later, so that's another good thing too. So is there any more comments with regards to the report?
No, other than Ross did a really good job.
Yeah, Ross, it was awesome, Ross, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. So we'll move, if there's no other questions or any comments, then we'll move on to current bylaws and resolutions. We have a motion for adoption for bylaw of 1152/2022 user rates and fees for 2023, and they were amended, so for adoption. Do I have a motion? Thank you, John. Do I have a second? Thank you, Brian. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So again, we will probably be moving this next one over to Ross to discuss a bit, but it's about the 1157/2023 Fire Department Establishment Procedure Amendment Bylaw for first, second, and third readings. So if Ross, are you available to talk about this motion, this bylaw, please?
I am indeed. In a nutshell, really, it's all set out in the staff report. This direction may seem familiar to council, as this matter has been before council in recent years on 2 occasions. The proposed amendment before you really is reflective of the scope of service that the fire department currently provides, which is exterior and interior. We need to amend the bylaw to be reflective of that, to avoid, let's just simply say, issues otherwise. The other issue that needs to be dealt with immediately, or in the short term, let's say, is the provision of the fire department being first responders. As set out in the report, they're not trained for that purpose, which creates a bit of a conflict. So at this point, the recommendation is to consider both revisions to the bylaw. That said, moving forward, there's an opportunity to modernize or update the bylaw to be more reflective of emergent issues with regard to the service, generally speaking. That comes from the Fire Commissioner's Office and the playbook, recent training standard changes, and so on and so forth. So council can expect to see in the near term further revisions to the bylaw once there has been an opportunity to investigate the full scope, to meet with the fire department folks, and craft some revisions that are reflective of the needs of the department and of the district, as well as the community as a whole. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, John.
I'll make the motion to do first, second, and third reading.
Okay, and that would be for that the fire department established procedure bylaw 16-2011 be amended to establish the service operational level as interior and amend the language in the bylaw to replace references to providing first response to medical emergencies to assist. So we have a first and second. John made a motion, Fred seconded it. Any more comments or questions? If there aren't any, yep, well, John, sorry. I thought you wanted.
No, I want to speak.
Okay, go ahead, John, you're allowed. Go.
Okay, thank you. The reason we don't do first responders in the Port Hardy Fire Department is because it's too much of a burden on our volunteers. It takes a lot more time. Our volunteers right now do a lot of calls here in Port Hardy. Some of them are non-emergency, like alarms and stuff like that. So, but it's still, we have to go out and investigate. And by adding first responders to the mix, it would be too much of a burden on those individuals. We don't mind assisting the ambulance service, but we will not become first responders. Oh,
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Robertson.
Just, are you asked to assist when,
yes, we do get asked to assist when the ambulance services are doing other jobs. We get asked to assist, but we're not there to be first responders. It's a whole different program on itself, and this fire department doesn't wish to go in that direction for the sake of its members.
And what kind of brought this up, because I'm a liaison with the fire department right now, and the discussion was that there was a call from 911 for what they call forcible entry, because there's a person inside that was in a distress, and they were calling out for help. The doors were locked. They called them. They went there. They were given permission by the person inside to enter the building. They got in there, but unfortunately, the ambulance department wasn't there at the time. And the people, when they went in there, the fire volunteers that went in there, they were there for 2 hours with that person. She'd fallen and broken her shoulder. She couldn't get up, and they were there trying to give her as much comfort as possible. But it put them in a very, very difficult situation because they weren't there to assist the ambulance because the ambulance wasn't there yet. So there was a follow-up with regards to 911. They thought that they had called the ambulance. They hadn't even called them yet. So then they called them. They were already on another call, so it took them 2 hours to get there. And the ambulance people stayed there, or not the ambulance, but the fire department stayed there with that person, obviously, because once they're there, they're not going to leave.
Yeah.
And it just made it really difficult. So it was a matter of trying to establish, what level that we expect our fire department to be at. And they're not medical first responders, right? They would
Correct.
respond to an accident or whatever, or fire or whatever, but that's not their role or their job. And it's unfortunate, but it's not to say that it won't happen again in the future. It's just a matter of that they know that they're covered for liability and everything else, right? So they can only do what they can do.
Yeah.
They're gonna help wherever they can help, but they just don't want to be put in that situation on too many occasions, because it could be somebody in a lot worse situation than that they're not qualified to deal with, so whatever. Okay, so we have a recommendation, we have a first and second, so any other questions? Mayor, did you have any comments? Okay, good, okay, all in favor? Any opposed? None, thank you. Okay, pending bylaws, thank you, Ross, for putting that together, very much appreciated. And now we'll move on to council, because there's nothing in the bylaws, new pending, but we'll move on to council reports. And it gives me great pleasure to pass this on to Mayor Corbett Labatt.
Thank you. So I've been very busy actually, in the last little while, and some of it's been doing a lot of fun stuff. So I'm going to be jumping a little bit around. One of them was doing the BC Hydro regreening program, and so the trees that are along by the four-way stop sign by Applewood GM was as a result of getting funding from BC Hydro and a grant from them, and so it was nice to officially welcome and thank BC Hydro for doing it, as well doing the RCMP appreciation meet and greet and thanking the RCMP for all that they do. One of the most fun things I did was going to the BC Firefighters Curling Bonspiel. That was the provincial bonspiel, and being part of the welcome to all these firefighters that were vying for a trip to go to the Canadian bonspiel for firefighters and PEI. Unfortunately, our guys didn't, and women didn't come in first, but it was a great bonspiel and lots of fun. Let's see, and the Wounded Warrior Run, we talked about that, and that was a highlight of the last little while with different activities that I've been doing. Some of the other ones was going to the LGLA elected officials training. It was very intense, and not only was it a refresher, but also learning new things that even though I've been on council for 2 terms, I still was learning new things and refreshing my memory on other things. So that was really, really good, and I was pleased to go to it. With Councillor Robertson, I was at the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness meeting in Port Hardy, and they have a mandate to help end homelessness, and will be and their mandate is expanding on coming to Port Hardy, so we will be meeting with them again in the near future. Oh, what else? Wellness First meeting, Safer Place to Be meeting, finance meetings, health meetings, regional district meetings. So there's been a ton of meetings going on this past month, and yeah, it's been good. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm gonna pass it on to Councillor Trina Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we had our Bear Smart meeting. We also met with Port Hardy Recreation. We're partnering with them to put on the teddy bear picnic as part of Bear Smart Week. So that should be a fun event that's educational and good for the kids as well. Attended the finance meetings. We had a couple of those this month. The Port Hardy Heritage meeting. They've got a really good group. They've got a new board and some really excellent energy, and there should be some good things coming, and even sort of looking at that tourism aspect with the heritage that we have here in Port Hardy and who we are. So that's good. And then I had a Philomades meeting last night. So that's about it.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Brightex.
Okay, so, couple of finance committee meetings this month for me, learning lots about capital budgets and projects and how to work things around a lot. Some good and bad news. I got to go to the LGLA, but I got severely sick. Woke up severely sick the next day and ended up having to come home, which is a super bummer because there's lots of good people there. And the night that I was there was really good and learned lots of good things while I was there. So it's kind of unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. Other than that, I had not really much else to report.
Okay, well, thank you. Councillor Tidbury.
I did, it was a full, February was a full month. The fire department curling was definitely a good time had by all. and it was well attended. The Port Hardy group had two teams in, so it worked out very well. I did the finance meetings. I had an emergency planning meeting here. I also did a tourist meeting here. The elections officers, I thought they basically tried to put too much stuff into the 3 days, especially the one day when we were going from 6 o'clock till 7:30 or so at night. I thought that was just, and we didn't have any sort of breaks as such. We had little snacks and things, and so it was a very long day.
Yes, it was.
I did actually like some of the stuff on the first day, and I really got some kicks out of the last day. There was some good information there that I took home with me. And somewhere in there, the Wounded Warriors, yeah, I did that too. And there's probably some other stuff that I've missed. But it was, it's been a very long month.
But tonight's over, so we start a new month tomorrow.
Yeah, we start a new month tomorrow.
Start all over again, Joe.
Yeah, that's right. Another month.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Robertson, please.
Thanks. I was at the BC Hydro greening event as well. Interesting, nice trees. Although they weren't not going to be green, I think they're going to be red, aren't they?
When they turn color.
Yeah, when they turn color, so it's a redding event. Anyway, just I'll quickly go through anything. I was at a Virl Library Board Executive Committee and the AGM earlier on, and involved in strategic planning and facilities master planning and how to establish priorities with facilities and new facilities. I was with Councillor Tidbury Vinwag meeting. He stayed longer than I did. I was there for an hour and a quarter. And it was interesting.
It was good.
On their approach to identifying identifying areas that need to be worked around in terms of their forest planning. I was at the RCMP appreciation, which was good. They have a hard job, and they do it well. We've had a number of members who have distinguished themselves in some of the work they do. And the ongoing finance talks, and hopefully that will be alleviated by money coming into the district that was unfound, but remains to be seen. I was very impressed with the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness meeting, and that they're hoping to move operation up here, and there'll be another follow-up meeting in March, I think. The LGLA again, interesting, informative, and sometimes you hit a wall and it was too long. And coming from a teaching background, when you hit that wall, there ain't no learning happening. I know, I should take mine. One of the interesting things, really interesting things I was at was an update on the Guanai project, which is the partnership between the Nungies and the provincial government in terms of forestry and forest planning, and what some of their plans are going forward. And really interesting, really positive, and acknowledge forestry, but also a whole lot of other values that go into it. So I think it's a really forward-thinking project, but it happens in conjunction with tables that the Nungies are sitting down with the province and with WFP, and also treaty negotiations. So there's a number of tables happening, but that Guanai project is really interesting and a potential groundbreaker as well. And I was at the chamber lunch today too, which was also very interesting. Heather and Shane presented about safer places. Thanks.
So one thing I was gonna ask, Councilor Robertson was, did you hear anything about BC Ferry scheduling for this coming summer?
No, I haven't. There's a fact meeting coming up that Councillor Smith and I are having a chat about, and we'll figure out who's gonna be there. And I'm thinking that we will hear about the scheduling of that for the Seawolf.
Yeah, hopefully it's gonna be the same as it was.
Well, both that Seawolf route and the, and Route 10.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Go ahead, John.
Just, I missed, that I also attended the seniors, meeting. I'm getting used to my committees, which committees I'm on now, so. Some committees I thought I was in charge of and I wasn't in charge of, and some committees that.
Too many hats, John.
I forget, so.
When you call me and you answer the phone by, this is John here wearing the senior citizen hat. I know you got a lot of hats.
So, but, that just reminded me about the VinWag meeting that we attended. We had a good, information meeting on what the company has to go through to actually come in before they log the area to research the whole area for black bears and for the eagles and all sorts of animals. They did that we would think, and it might be just a thought one of these times that we ask that individual come to this, come to council and explain how they research some of this stuff.
Yeah, Western's always interested in getting their forest professionals out.
Yeah, and it was neat. I didn't know that, that black bears look for holes in trees.
Oh, den up in trees. Oh, yeah.
Dens,
Yeah.
15 meters.
Oh, way up there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
and that's one of their favorite spots.
Mhm. That's why it's a
Because
big concern when you're laying out timber blocks, because you've heard stories, I'm sure most people have, fallers, going to drop a tree and all of a sudden there's a bear coming out of the
Oh.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Happens quite often, actually, so.
it does.
Yes.
That's their favorite spot to hibernate.
Can't do that in second growth forest, can you?
Well, actually, they can.
Oh,
Yeah,
They can.
Good rebuttal.
I get a lot of knowledge out of those meetings.
But the ones high up in the tree, you have to get a second.
Yeah.
No. It did good work.
Skinny.
But that's, just thought I'd better mention the seniors, or else there's certain individuals that'll,
You won't want, you don't even have to mention the.
okay,
And that's okay.
that's okay.
That's great. Yeah. We're a very active seniors, RWB Senior Society in Port Hardy. We're so very thankful for them and all the work that they do for the seniors in our community. It's awesome. Okay, I just got a couple things to share with you that down at the Mount Washington Regional District's last board meeting, what we had brought it as a resolution was to ask them, because when we went back with the, I guess it's the North Island Sustainable Power Coalition that we formed a couple of years ago, we felt that we had done our part with regards to phase one. We got the study done. We got funding from ICE-T, we got funding from the regional district, and also the municipalities all put in some funding to cover the cost to get that study done. That was phase one of that. And so we went back with a recommendation to them to support that this become now a regional, I guess it would be a regional concept moving forward. with regards to, okay, what are we gonna do about getting sustainable power in the North Island? So we brought it to them for a resolution and they passed it. So now the Mont Regional District is gonna form a task force that's gonna be made up primarily with the same group of people that were involved with the coalition that we formed here. And they're gonna continue, and it's going to be led by the CAO, David Kim down there and obviously Andrew Horty, who's the chair. So they'll keep it going. We'll be a part of that, obviously, but that's pretty exciting. LGLA, well, that was great information. I took tons and tons of notes, but I really enjoyed it. Some of the sessions were very, very informative and very exciting, and some of them weren't so much, but it doesn't matter. There was a lot of good information. The other thing was that I always attend the fire and rescue officers meetings, first Monday of the month. A lot of interesting discussion goes on there about all the different things they're working on. And that's how it was brought to my attention about that request from 911 to do a forceful entry on that person that was injured. So, and that'll help bring about where we are right now. VINTAS, I'm involved with the VINTAS, which is the Vancouver Island North Training and Attraction Society. Councilor Robertson was on that for many years, and now I'm on that committee. And there's a number of different groups. We had an executive meeting today, and we're gonna be talking about moving forward with a strategic plan, and our next meeting will be in June. With regards to that, we also have the marketing committee that's led by Donna Mary from North Island College. She's the chair of that committee, and our first meeting that we had with the group, we had 20 attending that meeting in person to talk about what we can do more for training in our particular region. We also talk about marketing. We have a marketing meeting almost once a month. And Megan Hanchuk, she's the chair of that committee. And she's working on a number of different things, the ambassador program, bringing in other people to come in our community. They're working on videos, they're working on all kinds of different things for attraction to our community and retention, obviously. And so it's great what that group is doing. And I think it's gonna continually keep building and get bigger and better. I'm also involved, obviously, with the North Island Seniors Housing Foundation with regards to seniors housing. We've looked at a number of different areas. We've basically picked an area we think is gonna work best for us with regards to site development. And we're talking to BC Housing on a regular basis, so we're moving forward to that. Hopefully, we'll have everything in place for our application to go for the BC Housing intake in the fall, but we don't know when that's gonna be for sure. Because they haven't really said yet, so. That's basically all, and a number of other different committees and things that I was involved with, obviously, that the other councilors and mayor has already mentioned, but. Yeah, I think that it's been great. I mean, it's been, like as John's mentioned, it's been a busy February, and it's gonna be a really busy March moving forward by the looks of it, but that's okay. That's good for our community. So, looking at get your hand up for something? You want to adjourn already?
No, I thought I would present a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
If you have something to say.
So, before we do that though, is it information and announcements? Is there anything that needs to be added or changed? Anything in there? Mayor, is there anything that you can see? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. It looks good.
The only thing that I would like to make mention that next Tuesday, March the 7th, is the job fair. And I'm assuming that that your company's got a booth there?
No.
No? Can we help you do that? Would you like to do that?
Send me an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that. Because look, what they have 36 booths set up right now that have already been, but they can go up to 45, I think, or 40.
Okay.
So there's room there.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we can pass that on to you. I know that a lot of businesses have been reached out. Basically what it is giving an opportunity for the businesses to be there and to share what they're doing and what they're looking for. And hopefully students and that and people in the community are gonna come to find out if there's anything there for them. If you're looking for people that, need a hand,
Yeah.
work. So anyways, and it gives you an opportunity to tell everybody what you're doing and how your company is doing in the community.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I think Councillor Robertson had his hand up.
I did. I moved to adjourn.
Okay, moves to adjourn. Thank you. Mayor, have you anything to say before you run off to Florida?
Yeah, safe travels.
Well, I think we still need to ask if anybody in the has any
You.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments to make.
Yes,
Going to public now, right? Right? That's what you said, Mayor? Public
yep,
comment?
we've adjourned. You can do it.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
getting the shelters sites you've chosen downtown. And the highest point one was behind the CIBC Bank. I don't know if you're aware, but the credit